The assembly will come to order. The chief clerk will call the roll.
Assemblywoman Anderson. Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson. Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod. Assemblywoman Black. Assemblywoman Brown May. Assemblywoman Carlton. Assemblywoman Cohen. Assemblywoman Considine. Assemblywoman Dickman. Assemblywoman Duran. Assemblyman Ellison. Assemblyman Flores. Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Assemblywoman Gorlo. Assemblyman Hafen. Assemblywoman Hanson. Assemblywoman Hardy. Assemblywoman Howdigi. Assemblywoman Kasama. Assemblywoman Krasner. Assemblyman Levitt. Assemblywoman Martinez. Assemblywoman Marzola. Assemblyman Matthews. Assemblyman MacArthur. Assemblywoman Brittany Miller. Assemblyman C.H. Miller. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Assemblywoman Nguyen. Assemblyman O'Neill. Assemblyman Orlicker. Assemblywoman Peters. Assemblyman Roberts. Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. Assemblywoman Thomas. Assemblywoman Titus. Assemblywoman Tolles. Assemblywoman Torres. Assemblyman Watts. Assemblyman Wheeler. Assemblyman Yeager. Assemblywoman Howdigi. Speaker Frierson.
Here. Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May the record reflect that Assemblywoman Howdigi is absent excused.
The record shall so reflect there are 41 members present. There is a quorum. The assembly will please rise for the prayer by Father Jeff Paul of St. Peter's Episcopal Church here in Carson City.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Members of the Assembly, today's Good Friday, and we're doing an interfaith service at noon today, hosted by the Latter-day Saints, which is a pretty exciting thing. It's a first for us here in Carson City, and I know I'm supposed to be all solemn, but I just can't help it. So, the word from on high comes to you today via Dove Dark Chocolate, and the word is, be someone you look up to, and since we missed the other day, don't stop until you're proud. Let us pray. We bathe our souls in the well of wisdom, drop of protection, drop of strength, drop of healing, be upon our being, our minds, our hearts. May this triple blessing be upon our souls from dawn's chill light till swift twilight. We invoke blessing and protection upon this assembly and upon all who work herein. And the people said, thank you.
Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order of Business 2, reading and approval of the journal.
Carson City, Tuesday, March 30,
Mr.
2021.
Speaker.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to dispense with further reading of the journal and authorize the Speaker and Chief Clerk to make necessary corrections or additions.
You heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Go to Order of Business 4, reports of standing committee.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Commerce and Labor, to which was referred Assembly Bill 290, has had the submitter consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation do pass. Sandra Howdigi, Chair. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Judiciary, to which were referred Assembly Bills 151, 182, has had the submitter consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amended do pass as amended. Steve Yeager, Chair.
Order of Business 11, second reading and amendment.
Assembly Bill 187, introduced by Assemblyman Frierson et al. An act relating to periods of observance designating the month of September of each year as a variant and prostate cancer prevention and awareness month in the state and providing other matters properly named thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
On the amendment to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have amendment number 48, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs.
Assemblyman Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment 48 to Assembly Bill 187.
Assemblyman Flores has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 48 to Assembly Bill 187. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment adds as co-sponsors Assembly members Black, Dickman, Ellison, and Matthews.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 48 to Assembly Bill 187 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bill's ordered general file. Go to Order of Business 12, general file and third reading.
Assembly Bill 227, introduced by Assemblywoman Carlton, an act relating to contractors, setting forth the persons who may perform certain types of work for a contractor, revising the grounds for disciplinary action against a licensee by the State Contractors Board, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in the Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1. Section 4, end of Section 4, end of bill.
Are the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks, Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 227 provides that a contractor may personally perform work that requires a contractor's license or may perform the work by or through employees of the contractor or of another contractor. Additionally, those persons or a person employed by a private employment agency licensed by the Labor Commissioner may perform for a contractor work that does not require a contractor's license. The measure revises a list of acts that constitute cause for disciplinary action against a licensee by the State Contractors Board to include entering into an agreement with a natural person who is not an employee of the licensed contractor and not licensed as a contractor to perform the licensed contractor any work that requires a contractor's license. In addition to any disciplinary action or other action that may be taken against the licensed contractor, such an agreement is void and unenforceable. This bill becomes effective upon passage and approval. Order of Business 15.
Order of
Mr.
Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There was a lot of conversation about this bill in Commerce and Labor, and there was an amendment that proposed that basically would have driven a Mack truck through the bill. But there is another amendment that I am working on, and I am a woman of my word. It has been insinuated that I am not serious about working on that amendment. I am deadly serious about working on it. We have a two-house system for a reason, and I just wanted to put it on the record. My word is my bond. If you have a problem with it, come talk to me.
Any further remarks, Assemblyman Levitt?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in opposition to Assembly Bill 227. While there may be a need to clarify current provisions relating to the oversight of private employment agencies, I believe this bill goes too far. Over 4,300 Nevadans were employed last year for skilled labor by PEAs, and this legislation would eliminate their ability to work under private employment agencies. In a time when we as a state are fighting to beat back the economic impacts of the past year, it is imprudent to take an action such as this. I do want to acknowledge the sponsor's willingness to meet with stakeholders to come up with a viable solution and amendments, and if one can be attained, I can concur at that time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Any further remarks? There being none, the Chief Clerk will open the room. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 25 ayes, 16 nays, 1 absent. Excused. The bill has received the Constitutional majority. Declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate. I believe we can go to Order Business 13, unfinished business of the preceding day. There being no objections, the Speaker and the Chief Clerk will sign Assembly Bill 9 and Assembly Resolution number 5. Now we go to Order of Business 15. Assemblywoman Titus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, we weren't on the floor Wednesday, which was the last day of Women's History Month. So I'm going to go ahead and give my little tribute to yet another woman that I'm truly proud of, that she existed, and just bear with me that I know it's not women's history anymore, and I know the men are probably getting tired of hearing us talk about women and other issues, but just this will be the last one I do for this session. Thank you. I'm going to honor somebody who's a true hero of mine, Alice Ramsey. And if you haven't heard of Alice Ramsey, Alice was the first woman who drove across America in 1909, and she actually drove through Nevada. She drove a 1906 Maxwell that took 2 people to start, one to crank and the other to move the spark and advance in the correct position and to press the throttle. She said that starting a car with a crank was like a clash with an unpredictable temperament, a gamble with a possible broken arm. Some newspapers declared Ramsey's attempt to drive across the country ridiculous and beyond the capabilities of a woman, to which she replied, good driving has nothing to do with sex. It's all above the collar. And she never claimed to be a suffragette. She was proving that a woman was equally capable as a man to drive a car. She would often have to go up steep grades in reverse, since that gear afforded the best torque with certain terrains, preventing her from charging up the steep slope, helping her charge up the steep slope with a better momentum. And that actually is a story my mom used to tell me when she was a kid growing up here in northern Nevada, and they'd go up to Lake Tahoe over Kingsbury Grade in their Model A pickup truck, where my grandfather would turn the truck in reverse, all the little kids would jump out, he'd back up and over Kingsbury Grade, they'd all jump back in and head down to Lake Tahoe. To change a flat during the trip, Ramsey said she would reach into the tire casing to pull out the tube as mother used to extract the entrails of a turkey. Those who know me know that I love classic cars, and I've had several sports cars in my day, and now I too have a Model A pickup truck that was my dad's that I drive around Smith Valley. And I love to think about Alice, and she's known as Alice in Yonderland, and smile at her proving all the naysayers wrong when I'm on that open road in Smith Valley. And as she said, good driving has nothing to do with sex. It's all above the collar. Thank you very much.
Assemblywoman Krasner.
Order of Business 15, Mr. Speaker.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. We use this month to acknowledge the importance of the community working together to prevent child abuse and neglect, and to draw attention to the effective solution of prevention, because all children deserve great childhoods. We all have a role to play in making sure that our community is the best place for children and families to thrive, not just during April, but every day of the year. Thank you.
Assemblywoman Black.
Order of Business 15, Mr. Speaker.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you. I rise today in opposition to efforts to get rid of the death penalty here in Nevada. On January 20th, 2008, a college student named Brianna Dennison
Point of order.
Assemblywoman Obedience-Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is out of order to refer to bills or debate on bills that are not yet reported out of committee.
That's correct, Assemblywoman. Our rules of debate and decorum don't allow for us to refer to bills that are not before us.
Okay, thank you.
Assemblywoman Considine.
Thank you, Speaker. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
So I am going to continue what my colleague from District 38 had started. I know that it is not March, but there is a woman that I would like to talk about for just a few moments that I think she had an incredible life, and I want to share it with you. Her name was Nelly Varile miguels Davis. She was born in 1844 in May. At the age of 16, she was engaged, and at the age of 20, she traveled from New York through the Isthmus of Panama up to San Francisco in order to marry her husband, who was Henry Miguels. She and her husband got married in San Francisco, and they traveled from San Francisco to Nevada because Henry lived in Carson City. They traveled by stagecoach, and for part of the trip, Nellie rode up front with the driver, which was considered a very daring and dangerous feat for a woman in those days. Also, Carson City looked a little bit different in those days. Nellie noted that horses and cows roamed freely in the streets and pigs were wallowing in the open irrigation ditches, which is a little bit different from my trip up here when, what I see now are the deer that are walking through the crosswalks. Nellie's husband, Henry, owned the Carson City Morning Appeal, and he assigned Nellie to cover the 1877 and 1879 legislative sessions, the first woman to do so, which is another reason that I do feel a connection with Nellie. Nellie's husband passed away in 1879, and she became the sole proprietor of what we now know as the Nevada Appeal. She went on to remarry, and her new husband took on running the newspaper, while Nellie continued to break new ground in our state. For example, in 1897, Nevada was the only state in the Union where prize fighting was legal. It was taboo for women to speculate on the sport. But Nellie's husband wasn't available to cover the fight. So she went and covered the fight. She used her maiden name because she did not want to disgrace her family when her story was printed in the newspapers around the country, including Chicago. She was not the only woman there, but she was the only professional woman in attendance at the fight that night. Later in life, Nelly was the first woman to organize the Red Cross chapter here in the state of Nevada. She was also president of the State Federation, which was a convention of Nevada women's clubs, and she was instrumental in passing bills that gave equal rights to mothers and fathers in the care and custody of a child. And she was also established a bill for a home for delinquent children in Elko. Nelly passed away in 1945 at the age of 100, but she was remembered for her persistence and her unparalleled contribution to American history. There's so much more to learn about Nelly, but I just want to read you, at the age of 90, a quote. When asked about how she felt at the age of 90, she thought, well, because I'm interested in everything that's going on, I have no recipe for youth. I eat whatever I like and plenty of it. If you want to know more about all of the amazing accomplishments that Nelly Varile, miguels, Davis has done, please look into her a little bit more. And also, from my understanding on a lot of the ghost tours that are given around Northern Nevada, she is spoken about as well. So thank you for your time, and thank you for letting me talk about Nelly.
Assemblywoman Miller.
Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in celebration of Arab American Heritage Month and thank the governor for his declaration. This month, we celebrate the rich history, valuable contributions, and incredible diversity of Arab Americans. I am proud to represent Lebanon, one of the 22 Arab nations that reside across North Africa and Southwest Asia, each of which maintain their own unique and rich histories that span thousands of years. Arab Americans have made significant contributions to our shared history in almost every facet of our society, from medicine to law, business to technology, and serving within our military and government. Arab Americans are integral in the shaping of America. My Arabic roots run deep. We've been able to trace my family back 300 years to Jordan when they first left Jordan and settled in Lebanon. My great-grandparents immigrated here from Marjayoun, Lebanon. Growing up, my city, as we fondly refer to my grandmother, made sure that we learned the ways of the old country, teaching me Lebanese sewing and cooking and language and dancing and business and all of our family history. And then she taught me more cooking and more cooking and more cooking. It was also my city who introduced me to politics, making me start canvassing with her when I was only 11 years old. She was an unbendable woman and trailblazer of the highest integrity and standards, and I'm extremely proud of the strengths, skills, exposure, and values that I draw from my Lebanese culture and heritage. And I'm also proud to be the only Arabic elected here. Unfortunately, our history and current reality is also scarred with racial and religious prejudice, misconceptions, stereotypes, and blatant hatred, which have only been heightened since 9/11 and more recently with hurtful policies that have directly affected my family. Thankfully, I'll be able to see family members later this year. We have all stood witness to the abhorrent hate crimes that have taken place across the country, increasing since the pandemic, and now is more timely than ever to put ourselves in the spotlight and stand against bigotry and hate. We cannot be hypocritical by standing up loudly for every other underrepresented, impacted, or discriminated against group, but remain quiet about the bigotry against our Arab community. We can all celebrate Arab American heritage by being an ally, because justice for one is justice for all. Stand with your Arabic friends, neighbors, and colleagues, and let's continue to strive to make Nevada a more inclusive home for all.
Assemblywoman Torres.
Thank you, Speaker. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Wednesday, we weren't able to come to the floor, but it was a very special day. On Wednesday, we celebrated Cesar Chavez Day here in the state of Nevada and across the nation. And as many of you know, I really started getting involved in my community because of my passion, my commitment to ensuring that our community
knew about Cesar Chavez. So I want to take this as a moment of privilege to recognize the impact of the work that he's done. He was born in Yuma, Arizona, and Chavez spent most of his life as a laborer and an organizer. After witnessing the injustices of the Latino community and of the farm working families, Chavez decided to fight for the well-being of all farm workers. Through nonviolence, he fought for stronger worker protections. He fought for the Latino community, and he fought for voting access. I urge this legislative body to honor Cesar Chavez today by celebrating and our commitment to ensuring that we make this state accessible to all Nevadans. Thank you.
Assemblywoman Gorlo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise in recognition of World Autism Awareness Day. Autism is the most prevalent neurological disorder in the country. In fact, the CDC reports 1 in every 54 children in the United States today are identified as being on the autism spectrum. Every year, the number of children diagnosed with autism increases and affects all ethnic and socioeconomic groups. Despite this growing population, the number of healthcare professionals who specialize in early intervention services are few. Our challenge is to find ways to better engage this growing population and provide greater support in all services, especially healthcare. There is a very famous quote in the autism community that says it all. Dr. Stephen Short is quoted as saying, "If you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism." So together we can raise awareness, focus on improving services, and embrace the diversity in our community. It starts with understanding. So thank you for joining me in recognizing Autism Awareness Day.
Assemblywoman Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
I rise in support of all survivors of violence today. However, I wanted to recognize that April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. In the United States, 1 in 3 women have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner, and nearly 44% of Nevada women and 33% of Nevada men experience intimate partner stalking, abuse, and sexual violence in their lifetimes. For many years, Nevada consistently ranked first in the nation for domestic violence fatalities. In 2017, Nevada ranked 4th in the rate of femicide, which of that, 56% of these femicides were committed by intimate partners. Oh, excuse me, it's hard to talk in this mask. The Nevada Legislature has made strides to help end sexual assault and domestic violence. During the 2019 legislative session, Assembly Bill 60 was passed and signed into law to broaden the scope of crimes that constitute domestic violence and to increase penalties related to stalking and repeat offenders. Also during that session, other measures signed into law include Assembly Bill 19, which provides alternative methods for serving temporary restraining orders, and Assembly Bill 41, which requires government agencies and public utilities to accept fictitious addresses as a protective measure for victims of domestic and sexual violence. But perhaps the most powerful legislation passed in 2019 was Assembly Bill 176, which enacted the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights and created the Advisory Committee on Rights of Survivors of Sexual Assault. Although there is much to be done, I look forward to working with my colleagues on curbing sexual violence within our state and making Nevada a safer home for all of us. Thank you.
Assemblyman Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This past Wednesday, we celebrated in this building Latino Lobby Day. And as many of you know, you may have had an opportunity to meet with some community members. I just wanted to very quickly thank our Executive Director of the Nevada Hispanic Legislative Caucus, Gil Lopez, and Mi Familia Vota for taking the initiative and getting a lot of small businesses, nonprofits, and students to come together virtually to participate in our Latino Lobby Day. Normally, we would have been flooded in the halls and had the opportunity to meet one-on-one, but unfortunately, this session called for something different. I just wanted to put out there that I know, contrary to popular belief, Latinos and Latinas are not a single-issue community. Healthcare, education, jobs, and so many other issues are so incredibly important. However, we recognize that sometimes there is a disproportionate access to a lot of these different topics and conversations. And Latino Lobby Day, it was an opportunity for folks to come together and really highlight some of those disproportionate realities that different communities around this community have to face and confront daily. And with that, if you could just say thank you to all the folk that participated in Latino Lobby Day. If you could join me in thanking them.
Thank you. As a point of personal privilege in response to my colleague from Assembly District 38, as a member of the first female majority legislature and a female majority assembly, I either speak for all the men in this chamber, and if I don't, you should let me. We will not tire of honoring women in this chamber, and I'm sure it will come up again, so thank you for that. Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate that, and seeing no other business before us. Okay. I'll move that, sorry?
I'm sorry, Assemblywoman Dickman.
Thank you so much. Sorry to be so slow. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
I just wanted to wish everyone in this body and all of our staff a happy Easter and hope you all enjoy with your families.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Before I propose a motion for adjournment, I would just want to give a little bit of a lay of the land. So next week we've got a deadline, and that means committees are working late. We have committees who are scheduling evening meetings and afternoon committees that are going to be running long. And so it'll be nose to the grindstone next week for the first committee House passage. Want to remind you all that. So get your sleep this weekend. I think that's it, Mr. Speaker. So I would move to adjourn until Monday, April 5th, 2021. And reflecting your comments, Mr. Speaker, I'd move to adjourn in honor of the first minority male legislature in the nation.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody dare say nay? Motion carries. We are adjourned.
I wanted to remind HHS members that we are beginning at the adjournment of floor today, so I'll give you about 15 minutes to get on there.